Wherefore, Part 48. There is a peculiar ley line running through the town centre. There are 4 especially significant points on it at present, all close together. Falafel Mama, the Webworks, the alehouse, and Sheddy's shed. Keep following the line in one direction and it takes in the 2 unreal toilets. One of the unreal toilets now has a second life as a piece of street furniture with a clock face. The other appears and disappears at whim. It is a sinister example of what can happen when a non-Stroud wizard is able to act within the town, and you pee in it at considerable risk. Heading the other way, the ley line meanders through a number of properties. Unlike most ley lines, it isn't very straight at all. It does some most peculiar things in the Waitrose car park before getting involved with the road and settling down a bit. The energy around the town's centre stretch is problematic, and mostly the wizards just stay away from it and let it be. This is a ley line of unreasonable desire. It draws to it people who exert unwholesome kinds of sexual attraction, leading often to obsession and madness in others. It is a ley line in both senses of the term. Currently, much of the line of unreasonable desire focuses its energy in the falafel shop. This is an affordable sort of lust to have beset a town. If too many people dream hungrily of falafel and wake full of insufferable longing, it is no great disaster. Wambleforth is fascinated by the flows of energy around the town. It is less about being able to harness and direct power, more about curiosity. A non-straight ley line of desire exerts an obvious appeal. And it also runs so close to the dead space that is the Market Tavern. Once upon a time, back before Wambleforth was an independent wizard, the Market Tavern was a much-loved dive of a pub called the Pelican. The wizards attribute its demise to Amergin, who drew so much power from the place that the whole area became unable to function. Now it sits in the middle of town, empty of life, and drawing dreamers to it as a black hole sucks in light. Wambleforth has also discovered a strange personal immunity to the powers of the ley line. It comes, the wizard thinks, from a willingness to be charmed and amused by the people who live and work along it. Wambleforth has no interest in feeling unreasonable desire, and so does not do that thing, except occasionally with hot chocolate in the alehouse and maybe the sausage and mash. There is a dream line that enters the ground just outside the Penny Farthing Cafe. This line only exists when enough people are dreaming about it, so it usually shows up at least once in any given week. This dream line digs into the hill. It leads to a space beneath the police station where there is a cave full of blue light. It is how people imagine the light must have looked in ancient seas. Here there are fossils of creatures so strange it is hard to tell if they too are dream fragments or part of a history lost to geography. Wambleforth is trying to find a geologist to talk to about this. There is an awkward spot further up the hill created by a bunch of people firmly believing that a domestic garden there was once the site of human sacrifice. Wambleforth is pretty sure this is another of Amergin's little pranks. He liked to mess with the credulous and to sow unhelpful beliefs. Not with any grand plan, so far as Wambleforth can tell, more with a view to short-term personal amusement. He was the sort of wizard to back a scheme to modernise the town centre and build a flyover, only to then rally a protest movement and fight off his own preposterous influence. Whatever happened to him, his influence is waning, and the fingerprints of his chaos are not as obvious around the town as they once were. Whatever the new wizard is, he seems less troublesome. Wambleforth has not met Tim at this stage, but sent him a duck to live on his roof as a gesture of goodwill, and also to keep an eye on him. The duck is not lonely, having a seagull, a heron, 2 pigeons, and a burst balloon for company. Everyone is keeping a quiet eye on Tim, and a quiet eye on what everyone else is doing with him. The two pigeons have built a nest together, and the seagull shrieks at everyone else's avatars, and life goes on. Wambleforth has reached that interesting, complicated point in a wizard's career of inevitably wondering what it is all about. At first, there is the excitement, which sweeps all before it. Then there are the years of work, study, and innovation. Somewhere later, somewhen, there is the wondering, what is the magic for? Many wizards deal with this question by getting into small fights and petty rivalries with other wizards. It is enough to be distracted, to plot small incursions and subtle revenge for slights real and imagined. Most wizards settle into the mutual thwarting and a comfortable sort of cynicism regarding the point of magic, and this stops them from doing anything too dramatic. Having come to this stage of wondering what it is all about, Wambleforth isn't drawn to the thwarting. It is so much nicer when everyone cooperates a bit, or at least when they leave each other in peace. What could they do if they weren't so focused on each other? At the moment, Wambleforth is learning how power moves through the landscape, not to own or direct it, just to understand. The ship Wambleforth inhabits is being adapted to ride the currents of magic as easily as the various watercourses. But that's just for fun. What is the magic for? There are people on the ley lines touched by the character of the energies they most interact with. There are many people with small magics, not strong enough to be magicians, but you have to ask what would happen if they worked together at all, or if someone taught them a few things. You really have to ask. It would be a great deal of help right now. What small magics do you have? What charm and enchantment is there in your life? What could you share of it? What could you grow from it? Please wonder about this more, and please consider doing something with it. Enough of the narratorial intrusion. Back to the story. Wambleforth can see the way dreams cluster together as though people are trying to redream the town. Or perhaps the town is trying to redream its people. There are dreams trying to fill the town with trees and aurochs. There are cave paintings on the walls of empty shops, and water flows openly in the places where it has long been tamed and trapped underground. There is a carnival in the streets full of giants and giant puppets, and Wambleforth suspects this is where the giants have been coming from all along. Although where they came from before the carnival, it is hard to say. Identify a beginning, and it always begets questions about the begetting that came before. We will resist the begat section. Where a thing comes from is not always its most important feature. Wambleforth is a case in point here. We will not explain or understand Wambleforth by asking questions about where they come from or how they came to be. The important questions are all about where Wambleforth is going. Theirs is a quiet rebellion against wizard traditions, a gentle, inclusive, power-sharing sort of anarchy that might change anything, given time. The question is, what does Wambleforth think magic should be for? These answers may define everything.